All right, guys. It's good to be back here for season 2, episode 4 of Sent to the Office, otherwise known as Adventures of Tremendous Fat Ass.
And that's you, by the way. In case
Right.
we have some first-time listeners, they haven't caught up.
In case anybody's
I don't want
wondering,
them getting
Or
in case
confused.
anybody's wondering,
That might fit that description
yeah.
as well.
we are season 2, episode 4, and this is our guest today is Brian Sheasley. I've asked Brian to be here for a variety of reasons. Brian,
Did he say your last name right?
He did.
Because I'm
you
pretty
just-
sure he usually says Sheasley.
Or Sheafley.
who is it that has the hearing problem? I forget.
Kids in elementary school called me Cheeseburger.
Was that's bullying now?
I probably shouldn't have even mentioned that.
They called you Cheeseburger?
Yeah.
That's pretty sweet.
Only
Why?
Only once.
Oh, really? That's why he befriended me when I moved to Iowa.
It's true.
So when people called him Cheeseburger, he can go, "Hey,
That was a good move.
yeah." Well, did you have a nickname you didn't like when you were a kid?
No.
Okay,
I mean,
well-
my brother called me Danny Fanny. That was the best he
Oh,
could
that's
come
bad.
up with. But Scotty Potty
I
was
got
way more.
I got shitty sometimes instead of shooty.
That's way
you know,
worse.
change one vowel. Hey, what's up, shitty? There was a guy
I
at
think
high
my name just sounded like my name
Yeah.
was Danny.
Danny.
Is Danny.
Is Danny.
But
Well, yeah.
people call me Dan now.
Right.
But now I like being called
I think
Danny.
you're forgetting about the Pillsbury Joe Boy.
Oh,
Yeah, was that a thing?
snap.
That was a thing.
That was a thing.
Well, for a brief
Was
time.
that behind my back?
No, it was to your.
Pillsbury Joe Boy. Oh, yeah, and then Brian would poke me in the stomach.
See, he remembers
Probably
now.
I
right
do
around the
remember.
same year that your basketball coach said you were too fat to make the team.
That's right. That was
Not
ninth
bad at
grade.
basketball.
No, I'm just
You
too
got some
fat.
skills,
He
but
didn't
we
have a
just-
uniform to
you're
fit
too
me. Is
fat.
what he told me. Remember old Coach Bennett? That's what he
That's
told me.
from episode 1 is when you told that
That's
story.
right.
Yeah, I remember
15 episodes ago.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, Brian is here. Dan, I know that I've mentioned my moving around, but I moved back to Iowa from Mississippi for the last time. It was the last time I'd moved. February of 6th grade. So February of 1982. And I moved in with my grandmother and grandfather down the street from Horace Mann. And I
Horseman
started
Hawks.
Horseman Hawks, and I started school on a cold February morning in whose class? We were in the
Was
same
art-
class, weren't we?
Wasn't the art teacher, or was it Mrs. Schnorr?
It was probably Mrs. Schnorr because that's the name
She
I
taught
recognize.
everything.
The only other teacher I remember is the guy that Mr. Peterson that used to throw the football at recess.
He banged a meter stick on his desk. Remember that?
Who did that?
He was like the art teacher, but then they had him teaching other stuff.
Oh,
As well.
I don't remember that.
Had curly black hair.
No.
Yeah, he tried to be a bro. He
Did you
was
say Mrs.
Schnorr.
Oh, Mrs. Schnorr.
Schnorr.
Yeah. Do you want
Have
to
some
tell a
fun
story
with that
about Mrs.
name.
Schnorr?
I have very few memories. Well, I have lots of head injuries. I have very few memories of going to Horace Mann. I remember meeting you and the recess thing, which I'm going to talk about. And I remember Mr. Peterson because he seemed like a giant guy. And at recess, he would go out and throw the football, and you'd go out in the middle and go, "Mr. Peterson, like I'm wide open." And there's like 100 boys out there that are wide open, and he would just
Right.
chuck the ball. And I remember that. And I remember they put me in the lowest reading group when I first got there because, you know, as I mentioned in a previous episode, it took months for your school records to get there. And apparently I looked like I should be in the lowest
They
reading
just
group.
assumed.
They just-
spoke.
Man.
Yeah. And so I got to
Just
read,
put him with the dumb kids.
I got to read
Sorry, that
Life
wasn't
on Mulberry Street again or whatever it was that they did. But, so
you
anyway,
climbed your way to the top.
I did. Well, I think I probably stayed in that group because it was easy. I mean, you know, I got to do whatever I wanted pretty
Yeah.
much. So
The rest of us were reading Where the Red Fern Grows
Yep.
and crying our eyes
in sixth
out.
grade,
Probably.
probably.
Yeah.
That was
That's a
pretty
good one.
advanced.
Don't
Try to
spoil it
remember.
for me. I read it, but I don't remember it. So no, I'm just kidding. I
The
remember. it.
dogs die.
All right. Well, the day that I started school, and as I've mentioned in previous episodes, what I'm saying is absolutely 100% true as far as I remember it.
That's fair.
It may not be 100% true, but it's 100% true as I remember it. Because as we pointed out in another previous episode, as you retell stories over the years, you might add a few things that aren't true, but they become true. So partly you're here to confirm
Okay.
or deny.
When did we come up with that? Was that when you were telling about how you had your job cleaning the golf clubs?
That you tried to suggest some Jeffrey
What?
Epstein
I
bullshit
just
on
tried
me.
to put it. No, go ahead.
Yeah, it'll clean that driver again, kid. Remember that? That was last week.
Oh, was
Yeah,
oh,
no.
Okay.
All right. Well, the day that I started school at Horace Mann, and this is what I remember. I remember being at recess. It was cold, and I was walking out into the field, and that was when you and Tim Thompson and maybe one or two other sixth graders hatched a plan
Well,
to jump me, essentially.
is this where I jump in?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can
Defend
jump
myself.
in whenever you want.
First of all, there was way more.
Sounds
than
like you did.
2 or 3 of us.
Oh, there's a lot more than that.
Yeah, there was probably more like 10. I mean, it was a collective boys in the class sort of decision. And I did not lead it. In fact, one of the few times that I was not intimately involved in the planning of
Do you remember who the leader of that was?
I feel like this could be a
Tim Thompson.
Hey Holmes.
I
Moment.
refuse to believe that Tim Thompson was the leader of that.
Well, Tim Thompson was the only one that saw it through, which you'll get to. But
Right.
no, for the record, I thought it was a bad idea.
Really?
I did.
Okay.
I took pity on the new kid. I saw no reason to jump the new kid just because he was a new kid. I thought we were going to go, for the most part, I thought we were just going to go and kind of scare you.
Just do some good-natured bullying like it was totally okay back in the 80s.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Welcome.
But no
welcome.
physical
A
violence.
welcoming committee, if you
Welcome
will.
Yeah.
to the neighborhood, new kid.
Right.
Right. Okay.
So,
All right. So there was more than okay. So, my memory
So you're off sort of by yourself way out in the yard.
with my back towards you guys,
And we've all congregated like at least 100 yards
huddled
away.
huddled up to
Yeah.
make a plan.
All right, we're going to smear this kid.
Yeah.
And then we take off running.
And then I actually that was before I was deaf. I kind of remember hearing these
Thundering.
footsteps
Clipping
approaching me at
clouds.
him, and for some reason I decided I'm not going to turn and face these guys. I'm just gonna keep walking. And at some point, just a few feet behind me, everybody stopped but Tim Thompson.
That is correct.
And Tim Thompson jumped on my back. Now I don't know if you remember the Bugs Bunny episode when he's in the wrestling ring
Yep.
and he's got the wrestler. That's what it looked like because Tim was like 95 pounds as a sixth grader, and I was 170 pounds.
And he wasn't an aggressive kid. He was
He was meek. That's why I
Well, he
can't.
probably thought he had his homies behind
Yeah,
him.
he
you know?
expected like at least 6 or 7 other guys to also jump on Joel all
Yeah.
at the same time.
This was his opportunity to grasp the brass ring of popularity.
So it was kind of more of a joke on Tim than it was on you, I guess.
Yeah, it turned out to be.
In a way, yeah.
So I remember him he jumped on my back and he was on there briefly, and I don't know if I chucked him off or hip tossed him, but then he realized that he was on his own
Yes.
and he ran to the school and stood by a teacher.
Did you sock him? I thought you socked
Yeah,
him.
and that's what. Okay, so that's my memory. I was pissed, and he was standing
Yeah.
by the teacher with a stupid grin on his face, like I got you, and I'm standing by the teacher, and I walked up and I punched him anyway.
Oh, you punched him when he was up by the teacher.
That's my memory, and the
That could
teacher
be.
took him inside, is what I remember.
Okay. What I remember, I have no reason to dispute that, but I remember you socking him, and I remember thinking to myself, I made the right decision by holding myself back.
I'd seen
I
some,
think the rest of us also had that same thought.
Yeah.
I'd seen some
made it
things
right.
by sixth grade.
Yep.
We were like, this kid does not
Yes,
have
he
a sense
had.
of humor.
Some he remembers, some he doesn't.
You know, that's not fair. I have an excellent sense of humor, just not about
Well, it didn't seem at the moment.
not
though.
about gang attacks.
It didn't seem at the moment that you were suffering fools lightly.
I don't. And it was my first day of school, and I was already nervous, and it was like the 14th time I've had to switch schools.
We didn't know any of that.
I know.
Well, we knew it was your first day.
And we're living in the basement of the moist, fetid basement of my grandma and grandpa that smelled like mold, and my grandpa's, because he would sit down in the basement and drink warm hams all day because Grandma wouldn't let him put beer in the fridge, and he would smoke 4 packs of cigarettes in the basement, and that's where we lived. So it was not a good. I wasn't happy.
We didn't know you were living in moistness.
Yeah, it smelled really bad down there. It was a damp basement. It was damp.
We didn't know that.
I know.
All right.
But so that's where I met Brian, because it was pretty quick after that you approached me, we talked, and we became friends.
Well, so you don't remember the other part of
No.
okay. So I don't know if it must have been the same day or the next day. We were in one of those classes, Schnorrs or the other weird art guy, and I had gotten in trouble and was sent out to the desk in the hallway, which I kind of liked the desk in the hallway. It was right outside the door.
They can't do that anymore
and
now.
it wasn't actually a desk, it was a table, so it was bigger. And anyway, and you were right by the window. I mean, I was digging it.
You could entertain the class when the teacher wasn't looking.
It was
Great. It was the fabled catbird seat.
right. But for this assignment that we were doing that day required a partner. And I couldn't have a partner if I was outside at the outside desk. Well, then the teacher's like, well, new kid, you don't have a partner either. You're Brian's partner. So new kid came out and sat at the desk.
Teacher set me up to fail.
And as they say, the rest is history.
You
We
can't
became best friends.
you can't put students out in the hall anymore. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
Yeah, that's policy. You can't put them out there. It's a safety issue. You were unsafe out there. We were unsafe out there.
We made friends.
We did, and we did a project, and I don't remember what that was. And then
It probably involved coloring pencils.
probably,
Remember you colored maps in a lot.
yeah,
Drew mountains.
right,
I love that.
yeah.
Why don't we do that anymore?
Well,
Geography.
We made a mountain in my class.
really,
Yeah.
like one of those lava things that, like,
No, we were studying
No,
into
dipshit.
thin air. Into thin air.
yeah.
I've
So
read
we
that.
made a
John Krakauer?
Yeah,
Correct.
and we made
That didn't come out when you
remember
were a
my
kid?
mountain?
Yeah.
No, I
It's
mean
falling apart,
at
his
school
story.
when I was teaching it,
Oh, right.
Oh,
and I had the students for each of the bases.
Yeah.
They did this thing where you could take a picture of it with your phone,
Okay.
and if you had the app, their work would pop up. And
Oh,
yeah, it was pretty cool.
that's pretty badass.
And I
You sound like a good teacher.
Did you have the Hillary step where they all froze to death?
yeah.
Sweet.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's a great book, by the way.
It is a
Anybody
great book.
listening that looking
Tragic.
for reading material, Into Thin Air is a great
There's
book.
been more, I think, like tragedies on Mount Everest where even more people have died.
Oh yeah,
since
because
then.
every
More-
year,
like more than that one.
more and more people are trying to climb it,
Yeah.
and it's becoming
horrible.
a big problem.
Sherpas are dying too.
Sherpa,
But
Sherpa Derpa.
I mean, there's like isn't it littered with oxygen tanks?
Yeah, and dead
everything?
people.
dead people.
And dead people.
They can't get them off.
You walk by, dead dude in the red coat, and then you walk by.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
It's crazy.
yeah. I don't see the appeal.
Krakauer wrote another book.
I do, but
He
not
became
once
a
everybody else
prison
did.
guard for like a year or
Oh, no.
more because it was in his family, his dad or his brother or uncle or somebody. Anyway, it's Jack something, Jack Boot, something like that.
Was it Mihoff?
It's
Dan, stop it.
I don't know what that
Stop
means.
it. That's just.
But it was also a
I'm
good
sorry,
book.
Brian. I apologize for Dan's ridiculous sophomoric humor.
Yeah, now I get it.
All right.
It was
anyway,
it was Jack something. Look it up.
for Christ's sake. All right.
I'm
so,
looking it up.
So Brian and I, you grew up on. Yeah, go ahead and look it up while I'm talking. That's and to let the listeners know.
Is that
Brian grew up on County Line Road, and I don't know if you know the South Side, but
I do.
I don't know if I mentioned it before in a previous podcast, but Brian's family was the first normal family I was ever around. And that's, I know.
take exception to that?
Okay.
Okay.
Brian's an only child, but he grew up with both parents. And I remember going over there, but, I don't know how soon after we met. And his parents were generally nice to each other, and it was quiet there. There wasn't a lot of drama. They
Not in front of guests.
ate together.
Yeah.
It was an experience. I was kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop. Okay, where's the drunk Uncle Bob gonna come in here at any moment and f all this up? But
Yeah.
it was like a refuge because I really like Brian's dad. I didn't really get to know your mom very much because I think she was afraid of me.
No, she loved you.
She did.
Oh God, she loved you.
She seemed startled by me quite a bit.
Well,
Is startled a
I
good
mean-
word? I was a little bit of a bull in a china closet then, and she was a tiny lady.
Then, as if it's past.
I would bulldoze my way into
That
the
period
kitchen.
of his life is over now.
See, I had
I'm nimble now.
no social skills, as if I have some now. But I just would, I kind of barrel my way into Brian's kitchen and start making peanut butter toast and right in front of her, and and I just think I startled her a little bit. I was a little
She
bit,
loved it.
yeah,
She
okay,
loved
good.
It.
Well, I liked her. I just think I just thought I scared her. I didn't know, but she was pretty.
Probably liked you more than me.
Really? I don't think so.
Yeah.
So when you saw this family dynamic
Yeah.
that was very foreign to you,
Yeah.
how else did it impact, or did it at all make an impact? Like maybe someday I'll be the leader of my tribe, and this is how we'll do things, or no?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know that I ever was conscious of that at that time.
Yeah.
It was years later that
Well, if someone had pointed that out to you around that time, can you imagine your
maybe.
Yeah,
Maybe.
just
But I
curious.
just remember that was my first, and I think I became aware of it years later when I was around my friend Joe Sample, his family. I was around them quite a bit in high school and college. And, they're together and they have 4 kids and they speak nicely to each other and they're not loud and they're not, and I'm not trying to, insult my family and my living brother and my mother who did the best she could.
Yes, she did.
But with 3 boys, she tried to raise 3 boys as a single mom, and that was really hard, especially us.
Right?
Yeah, because we were
Just to feed them.
jackasses.
Just to feed them.
Yeah. But anyway, so I just remember, there's, I have a lot of memories of being at Brian's house, and I think Brian, I was at your house more than you were at my house.
I don't know. I was
don't
at
think
your,
so?
I was at your house a lot.
It seemed better at your house. I think I tried to be at your house more than you tried to be. I think you lied to your parents about being at my house more than you were actually at my
I rode
house.
my mongoose over to his house.
Your mongoose.
You damn right I did.
Yeah.
I was styling in that
Yeah.
mongoose.
Well, I
That
remember.
expanded my horizons.
Yeah. I remember that was quite a ride for a mongoose, some hills, and
Yeah.
you had to cut through that softball field.
I cut through the softball field and
Which
rode
wasn't
down
there then,
Southeast
probably.
14th or
Yeah.
to Guile
Yep.
to the tiny yellow house.
It was. And have you driven by that lately?
No.
Oh my God, it is so little. I can't even.
So it's still there.
It's still there,
stands.
and it's way smaller.
It's the smallest house ever.
Oh my God, it's right on the corner.
Hey guys,
of
houses
Guile.
don't- but it didn't get smaller. Like you're
it
saying
did.
it got
He got
smaller.
I think it did. It's right on the corner of Guile and is it 14th? And then across the
Yeah.
street was Watrous
Right.
Elementary School, but it's not Watrous anymore. But I just remember one of the things I remember. You came over to my house around Easter time of when we were in 8th grade, and I brought up going to Brian's house as the contrast to Brian coming over to my house because you never really knew what was going to happen at my house. Plus, as I mentioned, Brian, you're an only child, so you didn't have the brother dynamic, and I think that was an eye opener to you a little bit.
All of the above. I liked going over to your house because of exactly what you just said.
It's a little wild, wild west there.
I was under a microscope in my house being an only child, and my parents were pretty religious, and my mom was pretty strict, and it was not the same world at Joel's house.
No,
And he had MTV,
we had MTV.
and MTV was a new thing,
It was a new thing, and it was
And-
awesome.
and it was awesome.
Well, I'm going to paint a picture for you, Danny. I think I've told you this a little bit, but it was around Easter time, and the reason I remember that is because in our tiny little kitchen, there was a table, and it had hard-boiled eggs there that were painted from Easter. So it was maybe a couple days after Easter, or maybe it was the Friday night before Easter, probably, because you wouldn't be able to spend the night
Oh no.
the night before Easter, because that's a big day. Easter's a big day for you and your family back then. It was just a Sunday to us, but it was a big day. So
Good Friday.
it was probably Friday. Yeah, Good Friday. Yeah, it wasn't good. It wasn't a good Friday for me, I can tell you that.
It was a pretty good Friday.
So it's probably Saturday morning, and we're sitting there, and there's a bowl of hard-boiled eggs here, and I'm here, and Brian's here, and my brother John, 2 years older than me, is there. Okay, and we're just talking and shooting the shit, and all I remember is John saying, "Fuck you, you." You're gonna believe. Fuck you, you faggot! And he picked up an egg and he threw it at me as hard as he could, from me to you, with
Why?
the shell on, and hit me right between the eyes.
Why was he angry?
Well, I'll tell you, because he didn't tell me at that time.
Were
So
we sitting at the table though?
yes,
I thought we were in the living room.
No,
He,
we were at the table
flew
because-
in. Thought he flew in unexpectedly
no,
into the living
he was
room
from
and
here,
sidearmed it.
2 feet away, and and
God, it's funny how I
with the
remember
shell
that.
on, and it hit me right between the eyes.
Yes, it did. That I remember.
Okay, so now imagine you're John, and then the kitchen is beyond you, and then the door is beyond you. I just remember John's face like, oh God, what did I just do? Okay, because by the time I was 14, John was, even though he's older, he was only about 160 pounds, 170 when he was 16. And I was 200, and I was Beck size, 230 pounds in 8th grade. And so John realized what he had done. And I remember going, the table got, I don't know
He
what
didn't have a
happened.
teacher to run to.
No.
So the table got tipped over and moved so I could catch him. And I just remember, now, the other thing about John at this time, he was not athletic, but for a brief window in his life, he was very fast. And he went out for football that year, actually, as a 10th grader,
very fast.
and scored a touchdown, according to him, in the Chicken Bowl, which is the inter-squad scrimmage. He later quit the team, like right after the Chicken Bowl, and he told me, and later he told me because it was specifically because of Mike Cook. And I can say that on the podcast because I've told Mike Cook this.
It's a fair reason to quit.
It's a good reason, because Mike was a mean ass linebacker, and I think in a scrimmage or a practice, John got hit for the first time ever, like really hit by Mike Cook, and he said, "Fuck it, I'm out of here," and he probably just walked off the practice field. But anyway, so he was really fast, so he went through the living room, and I was on him, and I wasn't that fast. And I remember he got to the front door, and there was a brief moment in his brain where he calculated, do I have time to use the latch on the door?
And the answer was
Or-
no.
And he decided, I don't have time. So he ran through the screen door. It just like splintered and screen everywhere. He just ran through the door.
Well, it was like wasn't a metal storm door kind of thing.
Yeah.
You're at the table.
And
at
I
this
think it was
point?
one of those ones that kind of has the push latch, you know.
But
If
it
I
might have been
remember-
locked. I don't
I
even
mean,
know.
it made a hell of a racket. I'll
Yeah.
say. Yeah, I was sitting at the table, and yeah, I remember like all the stuff erupting around me, and I just sort of sat there like the guy in the Memorex commercial where it's blowing everything.
Yeah.
Over. Yeah, that was me.
See, and during these moments, even though it's all happening very quickly, time also kind of stands still. And while I was chasing John, I had this vivid memory of kind of seeing Brian, and his eyes were like this already. He was like, "Oh Jesus!" So John goes through the screen door, and he starts running up the street, and I knew immediately that I couldn't catch him. He's too fast.
Can I
Yes.
get 30?
Yep.
Was it worse because your buddy was there? Is that part of your anger? Or
You know
was
what?
It just
I don't think
thing-
I don't think it made any difference, because John and I with Thunderdome,
Yeah.
without Brian there,
With-
that just happened to be.
That would have made a difference with
Yeah,
me.
it was a red. I mean, I instantly, when that egg hit me, I instantly saw red. It
Yeah.
was like I was as pissed as I've ever been in my whole life.
I kind of thought that John might have done it to try to make
Impress
me,
you.
yeah, make me laugh or
Yeah.
whatever, goof on his brother kind of thing, and didn't
Yeah.
realize that it was going to be such a.
And that's a possibility, because John went to the. I've told you the
He was
the
thinking it
the
was-
Hardee's Moose Cup McDonald's drive-through story, which you think is one of the funniest stories
Ever.
which I will tell. But that was one of the things that's an example of John going to the extreme to make somebody laugh.
Right.
And that's what John did.
Yes.
And I buy that
Yeah.
he was trying to
That's
entertain
what.
you.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So John started running up the street, and I ran out the front yard, and we had a rock gravel driveway, and I picked up a rock that was huge, and I threw it as far as I could, and I couldn't even see the rock anymore. And all of a sudden, John grabs the back of his leg, ow, and he falls down in the middle of the street.
That's
So
badass.
yeah, it was a long throw, but I had a pretty good arm back then. So then, guess what? John's running toward me now because he's pissed at me for hitting him with a rock, and I'm just like, come on, let's go right here.
And you know what? Can we show it?
Yes, and this is exactly
This is what it turned into.
what it looked like.
I got this queued up, Brian. Tell me if this is what you saw.
So John's in the front yard, and this is exactly this is it. The neighbors had all come out.
She's got the hose. We used to have to do that with
They hit
Yes.
each other.
oh,
Yes. That's it. All right, go ahead and cut it. All right, so now I think I've mentioned before, most fights last about 20 seconds, 30 seconds. It seems longer. This was a long enough fight in our front yard.
do you like take a break and then
that the
start up
neighbors
again?
came out and were watching, and my mother called Jim Shooty, if I recall. This is where I need your help because I'm blurring things.
I don't know. She wasn't home.
She wasn't home. Okay, because I'm blurring the next incident that happened with that one. So,
Yeah, she wasn't there.
okay, so right in the front yard, it was on, and that's all I. So
Yeah,
mom
so I
wasn't
don't
home
remember
for this
neighbors coming.
one. Okay,
out.
okay.
Yeah.
It was the next one that you weren't there.
And I think you fought in the street
Yeah,
by the person that we said we wouldn't talk about.
my across the street neighbor.
Your across the street neighbor.
Yeah,
Her house.
her house. My cross street neighbor who will remain nameless. Let's just call her Karen.
Or Susan.
Susan?
I-
Whatever. Okay. Well, okay,
by
so
Karen's
I'm blurring what happened. I'm blurring another incident that happened a month after that at the schoolyard, and I don't think you were there. I had a rough few months because the Easter thing, and then the next month this thing happened where we're at the school, and I was playing ball with, do you remember Rick Wilson?
I do.
He was my neighbor.
Yep.
Great kid, a little
baseball
bit
player.
older than us, very shy, but a phenomenal athlete.
Yep.
My cousin Eric was there, and I think Angel Nelson was there, and she listens
sounds
to
right.
the podcast, I think, so she
That
might.
sounds right.
Okay, and we were playing ball, as we did a lot over there, and there was a tall fence, and this little kid that we'd never seen rides his bike, and he stands there and watches us for a while, and then I think he asked if he could play, and we're like, no, you're too, he's younger than us, he's a year or two, and we said no. And so then this is another opportunity for Beck to bleep, but this is verbatim. So he's like, well, you guys are a bunch of faggots anyway. I don't want to play ball with you. And he started, talking a lot of shit behind this fence. Okay. So, and I'm 14, Rick's 15. So Rick starts to back up toward the fence like he's an outfielder. And then all of a sudden he turns and he scales that fence in about 2 seconds. And that kid hopped on his bike, but he couldn't get enough speed going. And Rick had him. And just, Rick didn't hurt him. He kind of grabbed him by the coat and jacket and took a piece of his candy and then told him to get the hell out of here. And he did. And then about 10 minutes later, this guy walks up, this adult. And it turns out it was the kid's dad, but I didn't know who he was. And he walked right up to me and he goes, oh, you think you're a tough guy picking on a little kid? And he punched me in the face as hard as he could. And I went down. I mean, he wasn't, I was a big boy, but he was an adult, and he punched me hard.
That's assault. That's assault.
Yeah.
Yeah,
well,
don't do that.
Okay, so that was the moment that I went home and Mama Shooty called Jim Shooty, and they were split up at that time. And that's when, so that's when I was confusing. And then Jim Shooty came to our house, and Mama Shooty told him what happened. This is the adult punched me in the face, and I'm, crying. I got punched in the face. My face probably looked like yours right now, actually, Dan. You know what that reminds me? I just listened to a podcast on Al Capone, and he died of syphilis, and that kind of
They think that could be it.
it could be, but
think it's
anyway. So I probably
I think it's impetigo.
Impetag. Good call.
I'm not sure what that is.
Didn't you struggled with that as a youth?
No, I did not.
No, you had the
I had the scabies.
psoriasis.
I had the psoriasis or the tetter. No,
Oh,
I had
that's an autoimmune disease.
what's it called? Yeah, psoriasis. I
Yeah?
suppose. Yeah.
Yeah,
Dry patches of dry skin.
dry skin.
Yeah,
You were embarrassed about that,
for sure.
and I was. Of course, I had no grace, and so I would see it and point it out. What's that? What's wrong? What's wrong? And you'd be like, nothing.
Are you trying to make me cry right now?
Yeah, I didn't know. I didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
So anyway, so Jim Shooty gets there, and you remember old Jim Shooty, like he was like a goddamn grizzly bear. Okay, 6'1", 300 pounds, and he walked from our house to this guy's house, and there was like, by the time he got there were like 8 or 10 kids around trailing him, and he knocks on this guy's door. And the guy's like, yeah, could I help you? And Shooty grabbed him by the shirt and yanked him out. And the guy's like, no. And he wasn't very, big. And old Shooty picked him up and put him on top of the fence. And he had with all the spikes and was raking him back and forth on this thing. And shirt's all ripped. And he's bleeding and begging Shooty to stop. And we're all just like, just loving it. Loving this thing. So
Frontier justice.
that's the way it should be. And then we had a mediation and no charges. Guy, the mediation was I had to go sit in a room with him, so he apologized to me for punching me.
Wow.
And he's like, well, first I didn't know you were 14, or I probably wouldn't have punched you. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, times were different back then. I mean, that would have been on Channel 8 News.
Oh yeah.
That would have been headline news, the
Probably
local
should have
news.
been.
So, but yeah, that and then the next month was when I got my ass beat at Southtown swimming pool. So, and I've already told that one. So it was
That
rough.
was a rough couple.
it
that was a little
led to me
bad
being
patch.
pretty angry.
You're already angry.
I got angrier.
It was
Yeah.
your formative years.
Yeah, yeah. And in 8th grade, and that was the tail end of 8th grade, which was already a rough year.
That was a rough year.
I got suspended a few times, and I got to say that Brian was in the middle of a lot of
I
that.
knew this one was going to come up,
Yeah.
right? Are you
Right.
going to tell it?
Well, Dan, the first time,
was
and I
mean.
don't know if I think I've told you, but I got suspended from school for fighting, and I'm not going to say who or whatever, but the fight started because Brian, we were sitting behind a kid, a pretty good sized kid, and Brian had a trusty pencil, that you could bend, and he was bending it and flipping this kid's ear during an assembly.
that.
Right. And I was oblivious. I had no idea he was even doing it.
Well,
because,
wait a minute. Hold
like,
on.
no. I was
Hold
watching
on.
the assembly.
Hold on. We were all messing with Garrett, flicking him
I don't
with
remember
the
messing with
fingers,
him.
and you sat directly behind him and you participated in
You
all
said
of
his
that.
name. I don't want to say his name.
Oh, he can bleep that.
Yeah, you can bleep it out.
All right. So, and he was a kid
He's
that
kind of got selective memory over
yeah.
here.
Well,
don't you think?
you know, he
Well,
was,
like
he-
I said, it's
he was
100%
making
true
it all
based
about,
on what I remember.
He was making it all about me, and as you'll see in a moment, it was mostly about me, but because I took it too far.
and then the
I took
kid,
it too far.
the
So
kid- yeah.
this is before the assembly, and he was talking. Everybody's being rambunctious as they're getting ready for the assembly to start, and we're kind of flicking him in the air. It's all fun and games, you know. Oh, stop it.
jackass 8th graders.
And just as the vice principal, I think, or the principal came on stage,
It was the principal.
I had the pencil, and I think I had kind of, but not bent it backwards, but just sort of maybe stuck it. You know, I was messing with him with the pencil. And just as the assembly was just about to start, again, you kind of wonder what you're thinking, right? I didn't think it was going to be that big of a
Yeah, it's hard to
slap,
gauge. It's hard to gauge.
right? I
You
knew it was
erred
gonna
on
be
the
a whack.
side of let's let him have it.
I knew it was going to be a whack. It was maybe a little like what John did with the egg.
Right.
And I cracked him, and obviously it hurt, and he turned around. He thought it was Joel, and he turned around and grabbed Joel by the shirt and ripped his shirt. So Joel did
Okay,
the only
time
thing
out.
he
That's
possibly could
no.
do.
That's where my memory's different. He punched me in the chest.
I thought he just grabbed you.
He might have grabbed me too,
He
but
ripped
I
your
remember he
shirt.
punched me in the chest.
He ripped your shirt, and that's when you
Okay.
you went gorilla on him.
And I yeah.
You stood up, so we're in the middle,
Back.
all the way in the back. So everybody sees the commotion. Everybody that's in front turns around. The principal's standing on stage. Joel stands up and gives him a couple good socks from a what would be illegal in the MMA world now.
Right. I had
the-
the advantage.
The 12-6 strike.
Yeah. The
Yeah.
leverage.
And got kicked out, and so they pull him out of the
God damn it,
that's
Dan.
just great.
God, we're doing a podcast.
Sorry about that.
All right. Sarah, he can wait. Sarah,
Where's
whatever.
my center?
Oh,
3, 2,
Sarah.
1.
Sweet, sexy
All right.
Sarah.
Okay,
Okay.
now I'm gonna jump in here because after I got a good shot in,
think it was
Mr.
2.
Estito, Roger Estito, was strategically sitting behind our row, the vice principal. I remember that.
Okay, I don't
Because-
remember that.
Now, Dan, when we were in 8th grade, the first day of school in 8th grade, we had homeroom. And we're sitting there, Brian and I walk in, we're looking at our schedule, and we're like, we're in the same homeroom. Sweet. And then we sit down, and then all these cool dudes start walking in. Dudes, all dudes. And there's like 20, and we're like, this is going to be the sweetest homeroom ever. And then in walks the teacher, and it was the assistant principal, Roger Estito, decided to it was like the movie with Morgan Freeman where they rounded up all the kids on the stage.
Were
the
you
bad
waiting
kids.
for him to go, you are dismissed?
And then,
I was pretty psyched. We were in the home ec room,
yes,
and we had a TV and AV cart,
yep,
and we watched cartoons.
that's right. Anything to keep us from doing whatever it was.
Yeah, and then we started making toast.
Toast, peanut butter toast. It was a bummer when
That's where he
Mr.
drew the line.
Mr.
No
Estito
toast.
was our teacher. That was a bummer, but he was strategically sitting behind us, and Mr. Estito was a big guy. He was a big 6'4", 6'5", and I just remember he grabbed me and he kind of picked me up and kind of dragged me to the office. And the one thing I'll say, right now, Mr. Estito passed away a year or so ago.
Yeah, that's sad.
I love that guy.
Yeah, he was
That guy was the nicest. It took me years to realize what a good guy he was because he didn't have to be. I used to go to his office every day because I was a dick. And he had a little desk for me, and he would let me keep some of my stuff there in his office. And he wore cowboy boots, and he had his big 10-gallon hat kind of parked right here.
That's right.
And, well, Joel, what's going on now? What'd you do this time? I don't know. I don't remember. But he was the best. He was awesome. He might have made. He might be why I wanted to be a school administrator.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think that's probably true.
I wanted to suspend some MFers because after all the times I got suspended, I wanted to suspend some people.
Yeah, right. Oh,
I've suspended a few
tough
people.
guy, Joel.
I did a few times.
I know.
All right. How much time we got now, Beck?
Almost 40 minutes.
Sound engineer
Damn.
Beck Shooty. Do we have a triple B question?
I think I should, because we did talk crap about his hair last time, just share what I said before we started recording,
Okay,
which I
yeah, do.
meant. Everything I said about his hair, I take back because it is dope. It looks awesome.
Dope.
Just like that.
You said he looked like Jim Morrison,
Yes.
Jim
Lizard
Morrison
King.
is
The
literally
Lizard
dope.
King.
and Beck doesn't know who Jim Morrison is, but I guarantee you, when he leaves, he
Google
will
it.
look him up.
I
picked
have
up all
visited
the
Jim Morrison's
chicks.
grave.
You did
Yeah, it's in Paris,
on
France.
purpose,
Yeah,
Paris.
yeah. One of the oldest cemeteries, like in Europe.
Really?
Or
Yeah.
is it?
Or is it?
Is there conspiracy theories about him not being dead too?
Oh, yeah.
Why is it when celebrities die, there's always a group of people that think they didn't die? I don't understand that.
People want to believe stuff.
Or if they did die, they believe that they died, but they believe they got killed instead of like
right.
killed themselves or drank themselves to death.
Ooh, let's
or,
talk about that next time. Conspiracy theories, because some of them are true. Duh.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
like ancient aliens.
Yep. Well, that's true.
Obviously,
Like the flat Earth. We
No.
heard
That's dumb.
that's dumb.
Did we go to the moon?
this weekend.
God is an
I just
astronaut.
I
oh,
think
should
we
I do
did.
this, Beck? I should. No, I'm
What?
not going to do this. Never mind. I heard of someone that I know who is a flat earther, but I didn't know it. I haven't seen him since I found that out. And that's just one of those conspiracies that I can't. Of all the conspiracies, that's like in the top of
That's
the ones
the
that make no
worst.
sense to me.
Yeah.
That's just insane. But anyway.
Well, okay. And speaking of that, are we gonna preface our next topic next time that we're gonna?
Yeah, we might want to do that. But before we do, Brian, do you want to? This is your time. This is your first
is my
podcast.
time.
Could be your last. I don't know. You were late, so
Yeah.
I was right on time for me. I arrived precisely when I meant to.
is that right? Walking like the prima donna that you are.
No, I thought the only thing I would add to this discussion was you were talking about how John was always trying to entertain, and physical comedy was his gift.
Yeah.
And it reminded me of another time when I was grounded, as I often was in those years. And my room was in the basement. I had a pool table in the basement, so it wasn't like all bad. But you and your brother came over to like cheer me up or whatever. And John proceeded to. There was like my dad used to be a scout leader for a very brief period of time, and there was like these cut out pieces of wood that were going to be used for like a craft project. And most of them were just like balsa particle wood, like glued together. And John picked one up and did his best like karate, and whacked his head on it and cracked it in two. And Joel and I just laughed so freaking hard, we were dying. So my dad came downstairs to see what was so funny. And so John was like, "Well,
Gosh,
I'll show you." And he picks up another one. Only this is a piece of solid wood. He didn't know the difference between the two. And he once again gives off the big what? Boom! And he cracks his head on it, and nothing happens. And my dad, that's to this day,
Yeah.
known the man 50 years.
If you bring that up,
And that is the hardest I've ever seen him laugh.
Yeah.
Ever.
John had a nice.
And he had a goose egg from it. Because he
Now-
cracked his head on
Now you don't know. I don't know if you know this one, but I'm going to tell this one because Dan loves this one. Do you know the story when I was working at McDonald's on Southwest 9th and he and Ron came through the drive-through?
Yes, I do.
Now, hold on. When you say I love it, it just makes
I've
me
never
laugh.
seen you laugh as hard.
You love
But-
it.
So I'm in the back and I'm cooking, but I had a headset on. But I usually didn't wear a headset, but I could hear the drive-through, and somebody was at the running. Yeah, can I take your order? And I heard some giggling, and then I heard. I think he said, "Yeah, I'll have a glass of ice water with no ice, please." And I'm like, vaguely, I'm like in my head, I'm cooking. I'm like, God damn, they sound familiar. That really sounded familiar, and. So they came through, and I think this one were my memory, and they got their water, and then they came back backwards, so so John was in the passenger seat, so he was the one facing the window, and it was this big station wagon that Ron drove, and I don't want to drop his name, but partner in crime, and I could kind of see, and John raps on the window, excuse me, and they open the window. He had one of those moose cups from Hardee's back then, those giant cups that had moose on it. And I'm really sorry, but they had relieved themselves in it,
It's disgusting.
number one and number two,
That's disgusting.
and put a lid on it. And it was around the holidays. And they opened the window and he went, "Merry Christmas, motherfucker!" And he threw
Also a crime.
I'm ashamed
It
of
was a
myself
crime.
that I think that's funny.
You're gonna have to bleep a lot of stuff. But
It's assault.
yeah, it wasn't. Yeah, that was a crime.
It was a
Yeah.
crime.
He
That's horrible.
broke the law when he did that, and I'm ashamed that I think that was funny.
Me too.
Biohazard.
At the time, I thought it was funny.
Yeah.
I'm appalled
Not
by
now.
that behavior now. It's not funny at all.
That was before HIV.
Okay.
All right, so we're gonna preface. We're at the end of our time here, probably, but the next episode, Dan,
It's
we're
time.
gonna delve
Yeah.
into the world of politics, and we generally stay away.
Yep. We've never gotten political that I know
Right.
of.
Right. And we're going to preface this by saying, A, neither of us are really experts on politics. And B, if you're delicate or sensitive, you should probably be careful maybe you shouldn't listen next week. I don't know. Maybe you should. But we're just warning people.
I feel like the way you just described that, if someone didn't know any better, they'd be thinking you were telling the Democrats to not listen.
Oh, right. Oh, yeah, because they love that snowflake
yeah,
shit.
you know, emasculate you.
Right. So next time we're going to, at least partly, maybe the whole episode, I don't know. We're going to get into some politics because there's some big doings going on right now.
Yep.
And we're going to give our perspective
Something to talk
on
about.
Yep.
And, you know, if it's something that gets you fired up, then probably not listen. Because I don't want to lose friends over something.
I don't want to
like
lose
that.
friends and I don't want to lose listeners. So if you think this might bother you.
I just think that, you know, you take two people that are as polarized as possible politically. If they met and started talking, they would find they have way more in common than they have different.
Right.
So,
Right.
yeah,
Okay.
anyway, so let's wrap it up. Here's the deal. When we're done, I say, Joel, go fuck yourself.
Oh.
But now I'm going to say, Brian, go fuck
Brian,
yourself.
go fuck yourself.
Aw, thank you.
All right. Thank you for coming, Brian.
Terms of endearment.
Next time, don't be late.
There you go.
Next time.